I'm Caitlin Johnson. I am the Communications Director for Policy Matters Ohio. And thank you again for joining us, members of the media who are logged in over Zoom. And there are folks also watching us on our social media channels. And welcome. So we're here today to launch the All In for Ohio Kids campaign, or AOK. We're a coalition of parents and teachers and community organizations and policy experts who are making sure that all Ohio children, no matter where they live or what they look like, can attend a fully and fairly funded public school that inspires them to dream big and equips them to realize their full potential. Today, Ohio's school funding system is created by and maintained by certain politicians who pit parents against teachers and communities against each other, while they drain resources from our schools to give handouts to the wealthy few and corporations. But that's why we've come together to call on our state lawmakers to pass the Fair School Funding Plan, which the House recently included in its 2022-23 budget proposal. So today you'll hear from Policy Matters Ohio Senior Project Director Wendy Patton. She just released a new report detailing the major problems in Ohio's current funding system and how the Fair School Funding Plan will address them. And you're going to hear from some teachers. Jen Juggler, she is a social studies teacher at Valley Forge High School in Parma, and she's a member of the Ohio Education Association. And Josephine Shelton Towns, she's a social worker for the Cleveland Heights University Heights Schools, and she's a member of the Ohio Federation of Teachers. And Amber Basaris, she is a parent in the Lima School District. And lastly, you're going to hear from co-executive director of the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, Molly Shack, and she's going to provide more details about the campaign and the coalition. There will be a question and answer period for members of the media after each panelist delivers their remarks. And you can type your question in the Q&A function and I will read it, or raise your hand and I will unmute you. For those watching us over social media, you can ask your questions in the comments and we will be monitoring those as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy.
Thank you, Caitlin, and thanks to everyone who's joining us this morning on our launch of All In for Ohio's Kids. No matter where they live or what they look like, all of Ohio's children deserve a public school that inspires them and nurtures their dreams. Ohio has enough for every child to attend a great school with advanced classes, cutting-edge technology, and well-trained professional educators. It is time to go all in for Ohio kids and demand that our lawmakers pass the Fair School Funding Plan and finally dedicate the resources needed for each and every student to succeed. We can make a better future for all of us. At the base of the problem is insufficient funding. Ohio's upside-down tax system starves our public schools, and the unfair school funding system prevents too many Ohio kids from getting a fair shot. State policymakers provide less funding today, adjusted for inflation, than they did a decade ago, despite changing conditions and increased needs of students in many communities. Since 2005, state lawmakers cut taxes primarily for the wealthy and for corporations, draining $7 billion a year from resources that could contribute to better communities and better schools. Today, Ohio's not really got a school funding formula anymore. School funding has been frozen at 2019 levels. Legislators have allowed inflation to erode the value of these resources. But even before the big freeze, the system had failed. 503 of the state's 610 school districts were not even funded by the former formula. They had either maxed out at a capped level of state aid that often didn't meet their needs, or got an often inadequate minimum of guaranteed state funding. Local communities worked hard to fill in the gap. The Fair School Funding Plan takes this pressure off the local community. It's based on the actual cost of education, and the costs are calculated the same way in every district. It's fair. It ends this system of band-aids and patches, the caps and the guarantees, and bases state aid on the actual cost of educating a student in each district. This creates stability so district officials can plan to meet student and community needs. It ends this system, it funds it funds the system of private schools and charter schools separately from the state system. Funds for private and charter schools are diverted from many districts for vouchers, which are scholarships to private schools, and charter schools, many of which are run by private operators. These options, the charter schools or the vouchers, may have a per pupil cost that is greater than the state aid to the community, to the school district, and the result is that local levy dollars, which are voted for public schools, are pulled into this alternative system. The Fair School Funding Plan would fix this by simply funding the two systems separately. The charters and vouchers would be paid for entirely by the state. The Fair School Funding Plan helps struggling schools and struggling communities. It increases funding for economically disadvantaged students, children who may not have enough to eat or may worry about having a roof over their heads. This makes learning very tough. The special funding lawmakers have provided for economically disadvantaged students has not kept pace with the right number of students who need it.
Wendy, we're having some trouble hearing you right now. Something's going on with the microphone.
Okay, let me, can you hear me now?
That's better. Yep.
Okay, thanks. I think it's an important point to make that the Fair School Funding Plan increases aid for economically disadvantaged students. Not having enough to eat or worrying about a roof over the head may make learning very, very difficult, and the aid that state lawmakers do provide for this has not kept up with the growth in number of economically disadvantaged students. The Fair School Funding Plan would fix this. It would make sure that all districts, no matter how much money their students have or what they look like, have the resources they need so that every kid gets a fair shot at the future. Thank you. Back to you, Caitlin.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And now I am going to turn it over to Jen Juggler.
Oh, we got you muted,
Jen,
Jen.
you might have to come off mute. Thank you.
Sorry, you would think I haven't done Google Classroom for forever. Thank you for having me. Thank you for taking the time to hear us. It's really important that we look at our education system in Ohio and we clearly understand it is important for every one of our children to have the same opportunities and the equity in education that we're not seeing under the current funding plan. Fair school funding is significantly important to make sure everyone is on an equal playing ground and everyone has the same opportunity. The district I work in, I've worked here for 20 years and we have not had fair funding in the 20 years that I've been teaching. And I've seen over those 20 years just how bad people are struggling, students are struggling to make sure they maintain the current education and the things that they don't know. This system is definitely broken. We need to find a way to fix it. I've lived through the years where we haven't passed a levy and where kids' programs have been cut. They haven't been able to meet the basic needs, where we're telling our students, hey, we want you in school, but you can only take 5 classes and you can't come in until 9:30 and now you have to leave at 1:30. And it's just not fair to that community of students that they're not getting the same opportunities as districts that surround us, their students are getting. The pandemic has been a real problem, some things that we are not going to be able to come back from. When we are teaching from our dining rooms and our kids are sitting in their houses and they don't have Wi-Fi and we can't reach them, and our district doesn't have the money or the funding or the skills to be able to give them that Wi-Fi hotspot, how is that fair to them when the neighboring community is getting their education through Wi-Fi when it's no fault of the students their own? It's insufficient funding and the system just does not work. The state has the money to give us the funding, however, they don't, and then our local level can't make up that money and our kids are just missing out on those opportunities. In my district, it's very hard for kids to take field trips because we don't have the money to do the field trips or the families can't afford the field trips. Those are experiences that that add to the educational process and add to learning, which our students are missing out for. So we really just need to find a way to fix this funding program, and the Fair School Funding Plan is one way to do that. It's exciting to see that there are so many groups, both the OFT and the OEA are working together with you guys, with Policy Matters Ohio, to make these changes and really make sure we're giving each of our students inside of Ohio the opportunity to grow and learn and be part of a great society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for sharing your perspective from Parma. And now we're going to go to the other side of Cleveland, and we're going to hear from Josephine Shelton Towns from the Cleveland Heights University High School District.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. All students deserve great schools. And in the state of Ohio, all of our children deserve great schools. Now, Cleveland Heights University Heights School District is in a somewhat unique situation in that we have a large population of private and also religious-based schools, okay? And therefore, our budget is just being hammered with voucher situations, voucher money being taken away from our kids that live here in the city. And that impacts us by, we always have to go forth and ask for levies to be passed. Our homeowners in our districts are being hit pretty hard. They're very supportive, but at some point or another, we have to look at how we're going to address this funding issue. Over the years, I've seen a loss of staff as a result of voucher money being depleted from our district. When people retire, they're not replaced. We've lost counselors, social workers, teachers, psychologists, other staff. I've also seen the district be impacted by something as simple as, you don't think about it, if a levy doesn't pass or if a levy's put on the ballot, we have to look at the transportation issues. Right now, transportation busing is a 2-mile issue. If you live 2 miles away from that particular school building, then you get a bus. If you don't, parents have to figure out the best way to get their kids, to school. Also, after school programming, also, has been impacted. So, when I look at this issue as a whole, and I do know that the state, gives a certain amount of money, vouchers, I was told in 2019, it was $4,650, which is the voucher amount, and we were spending $3,200 on each pupil, so there's a deficit of $1,400, and the district has to come up with that. So we continually are looking and striving for ways to, offer this excellent education that we provide here at Cleveland Heights University High Schools to our kids. But again, this antiquated way of funding has to stop. And we do have a solution. We have a great solution through our, our Fair School Funding Program. And I think that will help to look at issues of equity as well. Again, we continue to look at our brown and, and our beige and our beautiful colored kids and say, hey, how can we give them the same thing as everyone else? They deserve it. And we are obligated to make a way to make this thing work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josephine. And now we're going to hear from Amber Basaris, and she is a parent in the Lima School District. I think you got to come off mute, Amber.
Good morning, everyone. So what are you thinking if you heard the district lacks consistency, cohesiveness, and alignment in the implementation of adapted programs and strategies to meet students' learning needs and improve instructional methods? Or there is limited parent involvement in their students' academic process? What type of school are you envisioning? I can tell you, an urban one with Black students and a police officer station. You know how I know? Because these words are the exact words that come out of the Lima City School District Review Report of July 2015, as quoted by Ohio Department of Education. As a mother of 3, I get very frustrated knowing that our zip code affects the cost of education for my children. The mere fact that teachers statewide get paid $64,090 and locally $55,757 per salaries research. I have heard the stories of teachers financing responsibilities that should be on either the student or the school district. So I asked, how much would you give of your own finances if you had to also give half of your earnings back to your job? How creative would you be? As a former Lima City School graduate, as well as a mother of current public school students, I have concerns. I have heard the stories of families who were grateful for the computers that were disseminated during COVID to continue education. But was there a thought about the financial struggle of not having Wi-Fi in the home? I personally feel if we were to implement such tools as Fair School funding, no child would be left behind. We will be able to support the needs of all students and not just the accelerated ones or those only exceeding in academics. With 1,048 high school students in Lima City schools alone and a 14-to-1 ratio of students to teachers, it saddened me to hear Lima Senior High School is ranked within the bottom 50% of all 3,255 schools in Ohio. And this is based off the combination or the combined math and reading proficiency test results for the 2017-2018 school year. I support Fair School funding and all that it will offer Lima City schools. And I hope you do too, because these are our children and our future that we are failing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amber, and thanks for joining us today. So lastly, I'm going to turn it over to Molly Shack.
Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you to Amber for your powerful words, and Miss Josephine and Miss Jen, who are doing incredible work in their schools. My name is Molly Shack. I'm the co-executive director of the Ohio Organizing Collaborative. We are a statewide organization that unites faith, community, student, and worker organizations across the state. And we know that for a long, long time, our schools have been under-resourced, underserved. And what has happened is they've tried to pit us against each other. So they're trying to make us think that it's a city or it's a rural problem or it's a suburban problem or it's a small town problem. We have this problem all across the state. It might look different in the way that the problems show up, but the solution is the same. We need a fair school funding plan that equitably and fully provides every student with a chance to survive. We not only believe it's possible, we know it's possible. We have enough resources in this state to ensure that every student has a great education. And we're tired of teachers and parents and community members being pit against each other. So our organization is uniting with policy experts and labor unions and a million different types of organizations across the state of parents and concerned community members who want to see our unconstitutionally funded school system get corrected, to have a formula that takes into account equity, and to start to get on a path towards fully and fairly funding our schools. So we've launched this coalition where you can learn more about it at allinforohiokids.com. And we are hosting town halls across the state to lift the stories of incredible parents and teachers and family members who have worked so hard putting levies up over and over again, who are putting in extra hours trying to make sure their kids and their community have what they need. What we're joining together to say is that it's time for the legislature to do their job. It is time to fix this funding formula that was ruled unconstitutional over almost 25 years ago. And regardless of what the Supreme Court says, the job is on the legislature to get this done. So the Fair School Funding Plan is in the budget bill. The Senate needs to take action. The House needs to take action. We need to make sure that this gets through this year. It is long overdue, and COVID has just exacerbated the problems that our communities are facing. You know, this plan will help, whether it's shortening school bus rides for students, helping to fix old buildings, having a nurse or social worker in every building. We need to make sure that our kids have what they need. Each district has different needs. We heard from Amber about what's going on in Lima. Each district looks a little different and it might need a different solution, but this plan helps to address that for all of our families. So we've launched a petition that we are calling on the legislature to take action. You can find that at allinforohiokids.com. And we are asking everybody to join this movement because we need to make sure that we have equitably, fully, and fairly funded schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly. So now is our time for question and answer. Do any members of the media have any questions they'd like to ask our panelists? Okay, it looks like we have a hand raised. Joe Ingles. Okay, I'm gonna take you off mute, Joe. Or you might have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think that's it. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So I have a question for Wendy. Are you concerned about funding the plan long-term? And since projections are based on teacher salaries from 2018 and not current salaries, and property tax valuations are from 2018, won't the amount of money be off by millions of dollars because of the salary data and property tax valuations being so old?
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for that question. Ohio is one of the most productive states in the nation. What Ohio lawmakers, certain lawmakers have done and maintained have been enormous tax cuts for the corporations and wealthy over the last 15 years, draining $7 billion from state resources. Now, don't think these have been tax cuts for middle-income families or families of modest means. These have been tax cuts for the wealthiest Ohioans, the top 1%, and for major corporations. We're one of 6 states with no corporate profits tax. So there is funding available in Ohio. Our lawmakers have prioritized tax cuts for the wealthy and for corporations instead of a good school in every district. So what they need to do is be about the business of funding a good school in every zip code so that the children in Lima can be assured of a fair shot for the future. The quibbling over the salaries is it's essentially small change compared to what we have given in resources to the wealthy and corporations. So it's time to turn things around, to right-size Ohio's upside-down tax code, and to provide what the state is obligated to provide in the state constitution. Now, I'm going to say I'm also joined by someone smarter than I am, Steve Dwyer, on here. He may also have some comments about this one. Steve, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to do video. Oh, hold on. Okay. Am I off now? Am I off
You're
mute?
good.
I'm good now. Okay, good. I'll just you can just look at my professional mugshot. Again, Joe, there are protections in the Fair School Funding Plan against there being some massive increase in teacher salary. I know that's one thing that the Senate has expressed concern about, but it's just really unfounded. If you look at teacher salaries over the last several years, they've gone up barely with the rate of inflation. In order for there to be this massive explosion of cost, you're going to have, there are over 200,000 teachers in the state. You're going to have a significant portion of them get significant increases in order for there to be much movement that would have a deleterious effect on the Fair School Funding Plan cost. And the fact is that the average is capped at $95,000. So if teachers make over $95,000, they're not included in that average salary figure. So really that's really a red herring that a lot of folks are putting out there. And if you look at Ohio's average teacher salary, we're right in the middle of the pack nationally. And if you talk to folks down in Southeast Ohio, their max salary caps out at around high $40,000 a year, high 40s. So it's not like teachers are making, money hand over fist. And the whole idea that this is, that because we use they use numbers from earlier years. First of all, that's all you can do is use number from earlier years. You can't do it when years you don't know. But, the fact is that, you're not going to see these massive increases. We've never seen these massive increases happen the way they're talking about this exponential growth. And there are protections in the Fair School Funding Plan formula to address that. So if you do have a lot of teacher salaries going above 95,000, they're just not going to be included in the average. So again, the average teacher salary thing is really a canard that's been put forward by folks who frankly want to keep the current system that's been failing kids for 25 years.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have any other questions from members of the press? And I apologize, we are streaming on social media, finally. Had a few, it's on my personal page, which is then shared to the Policy Matters page, but we will be uploading this video in its entirety later so folks can see it. So if anybody out on social media world sees this and has any questions or comments, you're free to ask them. And if we can't respond to you in real time, we'll respond to you later. But yeah, any other questions from members of the media? Okay, well, hearing none, we are all really excited about this and look forward. We have a great op-ed today in the Ohio Capital Journal, written by Melissa Cropper and Scott DeMauro of Ohio Federation of Teachers and Ohio Education Association, respectively, announcing our launch. And look out for a town hall in a community near you. But we are going to make this happen this year. We are going to get schools fairly and fully funded in the state of Ohio. So thank you all for joining us. And, check us out online at All In for Ohio Kids. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye, thank you.